So this one, unfortunately, Brian, this agent just bailed. He just gave up.
The very first thing we did is basically tell them that there's a law that doesn't exist.
See if you can get a listing appointment. See if you can go meet her face to face.
Nothing like trying to have to earn your business twice.
I want to break this down for the listeners. Hey, on today's Cash Call, we're going to be showing you 3 things in these calls that we listen to. 1 is going to be why people reject you. 2 is typical reasons why you say dumb things to other people. And 3 is going to be a few options that you have when you feel like your call is hitting a dead end, when you're running into objections and you don't know where else to go in the call. So stick around and listen to these calls that we play that Brian and I give feedback on. My name is Dale Archdeacon. I'm the founder of Smart Sales Coaching, and I went from top producing outbound listing agent to partnering up and growing and scaling what became the number 2 team in our market and doing over 650 transactions per year. And now for the last 12 years, my sales training company has been helping thousands of students just like you improve their weekly appointments, their scripting, their dialogue, and their lead conversion with students all across the US and Canada, including some of the Real Trends list of 1,000 top mega teams. So let's get into the content today. Cash Call, everybody. Dale Archdeacon, Brian Curtis back again for another week. Brian, good to see you. Thanks for joining me.
It's good to see you.
On Ye Old Podcast.
Yeah, I think the only thing, we both did black, but we forgot to coordinate the hats today. So
I have no hat. I'm herring it today. So what do you got for me today? What do we listen to?
It's interesting because I think a lot of times agents can do really well and then just kind of go, oops, and screw the whole thing up. And so what I want to point out, and I'm just going to point this out at the beginning before we even play the call, is this agent does fine right until the point where she loses confidence in her ability to script or convey. I'm not sure exactly what it is, but I want you to pay attention to this because here's an agent who was doing just fine and then all of a sudden loses confidence and says a whole bunch of dumb things. And I don't know how a nicer way to say it than that, so I'm just going to put it out there that way. Dale and I aren't big script guys, but there's certain scripts you got to learn, like, hi is Brian, or
Yeah, I'd say we're not huge scripting people, but there's like principles and practices, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And I think, Brian, and I'm sure you agree with this too. We've talked about it before. It's like there's ways to get into a conversation with different types of leads or different scenarios. Like there's best practices around it. There are some best practices around how to approach objection handling. There's some best practices around, when you get a little more skilled as a salesperson, that you're headed toward a close. There's some best practices around teeing it up, doing some trial closes, right? Getting micro commitments and then pulling the trigger, so it's not much scripting, but there's methodology in there.
Yeah. And again, there are, I'm going to call them pseudo scripts. Like there are things that you are going to say over and over and over again, and it just fills the space appropriately. And that's all we're saying. And I'll show you specifically, I don't want to give away too much, but I'll show you specifically in this call what I'm referring to. And if the agent would have just had a standard script that she used every time, bam, 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 it'd been fine.
All right. Why don't you play yours first?
I'm good. How are you? Good. So Realtor.com gave me a little bit of information. They said you're interested in a property in...
Yes, one of the things that I liked.
Okay, yeah. So are you interested in multiple properties?
I will look and then decide.
Yeah, okay, cool. Yeah. So do you have questions about any of them, or are you just wanting to set up appointments to tour properties?
Yes, the tour. I want to set up appointments for tour.
Okay, awesome. And they said you're available next Saturday. Is that when you want to go check out some properties?
Yes.
So on the 3rd, Saturday, May 3rd?
So for perspective on this call came in on Monday.
Doing good so far.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with any of this, right? It's just standard discovery conversation with this person.
Okay, yep. Awesome. So have you toured any properties recently?
Perfect, right?
Mm-hmm. Not yet.
Not yet? Okay. Do you live here in...
I do. The one that I selected right now, I live very near to that.
Oh, okay, cool. Yeah, the one on...
Yes.
Okay, awesome. So what is it about this property that you liked? Do you like the size of the house or just like the location? What really got you?
Fast forward a little bit. As you can see, she's doing discovery. I don't necessarily love the order of it. It's not super smooth, but at the end of the day, I don't think the client knows or cares. I think the client is just kind of going along, answering the questions, doing their thing. So I'm going to fast.
Yeah. I want to give one piece of advice here.
Please.
We clearly have a bit of a language barrier.
Yes.
The prospect does not sound like this is her first language. So I just want to say this. All of us salespeople bring pressure to any conversation that we have with a consumer, just strictly by the nature of us being sales, right? Just by that's the cosmic rule is that we as consumers are prey and salespeople are predators. Okay. That's just the way it goes from a consumer's perspective. Okay. And I can hear some hesitation, and we have a bit of a language barrier. And so we've got salesperson talking to consumer, we've got language barrier, and it doesn't sound like this prospect is super experienced in this process. So hearing this, what I think she could improve what she's doing if she just kind of broke with the sales questioning and was like, hey, it's okay. I know you're just getting started with this process. We're not, I can tell you're not in a hurry to buy something right now. It's no big deal. I'm happy to answer any questions you have, and we can just go out and look at some houses so that you can get an idea of what you're doing, right? How does that sound? Yeah. And I'd want to try to feel like I want to get that emotional release from the other side of the phone to where it feels like this person's like, oh, okay, cool. I'm nervous, and now I'm not as nervous.
Yeah. No, I agree. And I think it's often more challenging when we have people who don't necessarily speak English as a first language. If I'm assuming English is our first language, of course.
Yeah, even more.
In a language that's not their primary language, let's say it that way, it can be very, very challenging to build rapport, yes. Right? Because the words don't fit in, and you can't. And so I think, Dale, to your point, that's when you got to try harder.
Yeah, you have to try a little harder.
They say that, but I think that's your point.
Yeah, exactly. Try a little bit harder. Just recognize the situation. Try to put them at ease. Just know that we as salespeople are always making somebody else uncomfortable, either a lot uncomfortable or a little uncomfortable. And if you feel like it's a lot, address it.
So for the audience listening now, I'm going to fast forward to basically where they start talking about the buyer agency agreement. And the reason that and again, look, this agent did fine, right? Again, to Dale's point, could have built a little bit more rapport, and a very challenging situation to build rapport when someone is English second language, in my opinion. Up to this point, I'd rate this call a 7.5 out of 10, wouldn't you?
Yeah, she's doing really good. I was just giving some pro tips.
Yeah.
She's doing good. Nothing I would expect her to
with that in mind, that she's done great. There's no reason to be nervous. The client is very easy to get along with. And then this happens.
I know you said you haven't toured any properties recently, but
No.
in order to tour a property, we have to fill out a document, and it's just called an agency agreement. Basically, they made a law back in August.
I'm going to stop this right here. They did not make a law. If you're saying they've made a law, stop saying that they've made a law because, well, they didn't. I don't know how else to say that. But I hear this all the time. Do you do too, Dale? Do you hear that there's a new law?
Yes. And we don't train that. So I don't hear that in my company because we don't train that.
Right. I hear it because I'm listening to calls that other people are making who haven't been trained. So yeah, I hear it all the time. Yeah. They're like, oh, there's a new law. I'm like, no, there's a big difference. So, and why is that important? Credibility.
It's not true. You don't want to say it's not true.
Fair enough. Yeah. We don't it's okay. Fair enough.
Yeah. I approve creative misdirection, but not lying.
Right. So this person's not intentionally lying. They're being ignorant. In other words, they don't have the correct information. Get the correct information. So the very first thing we did is basically tell them that there's a law that doesn't exist. So now we'll move on.
In order for you to go see a house, you have to fill out this document, and it basically just says, as a realtor, I can take you to these properties and I can represent you. But I know that's kind of crazy because you're like, I don't even know you. I don't want to sign a piece of paper, right? So I set it up really simple. Basically, I set the document it up so that it's only valid for the weekend, right? And after the weekend, you're no longer attached to me. And then if you want to see more properties and you're like, oh, yeah, we work well together, we can sign a new one.
Nothing like trying to have to earn your business twice.
I want to break this down for the listeners. Please. Because, it's important. And I think that some of the subtlety, if you aren't like an old, gray-haired salesperson like us, you might not hear some of the key problems that just happened in that interaction. Go ahead, Brian.
So I'm going to introduce a concept that may not get talked about in a lot in real estate, but I think it's very valid here. The concept is a drop. And here's what I mean by the drop. If you're not familiar with that concept, I start here. Ideally, I would like you to buy this product. You say no. So I go, well, buy this one instead. It's a little bit cheaper. Okay. It's a drop. So the agent did a drop. In other words, they went from sign my contract to you only got to work with me for 3 days. But notice in my original explanation of a drop, you only drop if they say no. You don't drop when they say yes. So she skipped the whole step of saying, hey, we have this document that you can sign and blah, you know, I'm not going to go over the script right now, but she assumed that the person was not going to want to work with her more than 3 days. So, you know, why do we do that? I'm going to call it scar tissue, Dale. I see people do this all the time where they have a problem one time and they come up with a solution for that problem. And then they use that solution for that problem when the problem doesn't exist. And in essence, they're potentially creating the problem. So those were some of the things that I saw in that little interaction there.
I agree. Also, pro tip, instead of launching into, hey, this is the thing that has to be done, I like to, especially when it's a sensitive topic like signing paperwork or documents, and this is something relatively out of the ordinary and frankly, a little stupid that we have to sign contracts with people in order to open a door for them, because I've never heard of an attorney who has to sign paperwork to decide whether they're going to work with you or not or answer some questions, right?
Well, you understand
however,
that they didn't sue the other attorneys for how they do business. They sued us instead.
Yeah, exactly. Yep. So let's just back to the rules as they stand, right? With this situation, I'm going to introduce the idea, or I want to find out what the prospect knows. I'm going to ask a question first.
Absolutely.
Right? Hey, I know you haven't seen any homes yet or been out with a real estate agent. What do you know about what agents now are required to do in order to show any homes that are listed in the MLS? So I'm asking a question, but I'm also framing the person with the way that I phrase the question.
Yes.
I've told you that agents have to do it, that it's new, and in order to see a property that's in the MLS, this has to be done. By the way, what do you know about it? Right?
Yeah.
All in the question.
And it's
so
brilliant.
Start there.
By the way, if you don't have something, go back and listen to that and write that down, because it's brilliant languaging. Because listen to what Dale said here. All of the information is presupposed inside of the question, and it saves you a lot of time, energy, and explanation.
Yes. And it also comes authoritatively, right? And so two things will happen. One of two things will happen. They're going to say, I don't know, in which case now you have permission to educate them, or they will give you some misconception or shred of information that they have, which will help you in case you need to do any objection handling.
Yeah. And again, it's literally perfect question. And it's the one that every agent should use until further notice. I don't know. Maybe there'll be something better in the future. But no, that's exactly what we need to do. Gets the client engaging, gives us the information we need to how we move forward.
And then what I would say is, so I've asked that question, the prospect's going to give whatever answer they're going to give. And then I'm just going to do the same. You know, if they have information or idea or misconception, I'm going to help correct it. If they don't know it all, then I'm just going to go straight into it. Well, now the MLS has a new rule for any real estate agent. The first time that we show you a property, we have to sign. I have to show you a document that says what happens if you purchase this property, how I would get paid, and how long we would work together. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes perfect sense. Of course we would do that. Why wouldn't we do that? We're creating you know, it sounded very logical, didn't it? Like, think of how easy, well, that just makes sense the way that Dale said it. It's not this big ominous, oh my God thing, and it's horrible and it's big. And look, guys, the amount of energy that you put into it, that's the amount of energy the client's going to feel. Did you notice Dale had no energy in that? Hey, so I got this document that you need to sign. Explains who represents who in the transaction and how we get paid. Okay.
Yeah. And then for this person, especially, I would probably say, I can review this with you when we meet at the property before we go in, and I can answer any questions that you have.
There you go.
And so I'm going to go for, especially for this person, English is a second language. I need to be in front of them, with them, and help them with it. And in fact, I might even ask, I can't tell. I mean, English is pretty strong, so I don't think that I would ask if she had anybody coming with her to help. But if I was speaking with someone where English was even more difficult, I literally would ask if they had a translator that could come with them.
Yeah. It's interesting. I've never asked that question before, but I have had children interpret quite a few times.
Yeah.
We have a big Hispanic population in my market, and I took 4 years in high school and 2 semesters of college and don't speak a word. So,
yeah, there's nothing wrong with it. I grew up in a foreign country. I lived there for 7 years. And so I'm very accustomed to not understanding or being understood. And it's very appreciated to be understood and to facilitate that. So there's nothing wrong with it.
I'm going to come back to this point now. You've got to know that script or some version of it. You don't need to know it. And what I want you guys to notice, if you look at the last couple of cash calls where we've talked about buyer agency agreements, the last couple of cash calls, Dale's scripting was slightly different last call than it was this call. But conceptually, on the whole, it says the same exact thing. So do we need you to memorize word for word? Absolutely not. We just need you to conceptually understand how to present a concept and do it with confidence, because I don't know what happened with this transaction or potential transaction, I guess. And that could have gone really sideways. I think the woman understood the English well enough for it to go sideways, to be honest.
Yeah, when you start talking about contracts and, I have this thing, but I'm going to make it less bad for you. That's kind of like that's what I heard, right? It's like, oh, I'm already having an interaction with a salesperson who I can't trust, because you can never trust salespeople. And then they start talking about these fancy words that I don't understand and documents and paperwork. Oh, but they're going to make it better for me. I don't know about this situation. Maybe I don't want to go meet them.
Right. It literally creating objections like, I didn't know it was bad for me. Is it bad for me?
Right. I didn't know this was a bad thing. You just introduced the concept of it being bad and that you're going to make it less bad. That's
right.
terrible.
I didn't know it was bad. And that's what we're talking about. Literally, I watch salespeople do this all the time, Dale. They create objections that didn't exist. How do you feel about the interest rate? Well, I felt fine until you asked me, what's the interest rate? It's crazy.
Ready for mine?
I'm ready. Bring it.
So this one, unfortunately, Brian, this agent just bailed. Bailed
Excellent.
On this call. Listen to it. I think it's self-explanatory. And I want to talk about the psychology of what happened, because I actually asked him afterwards.
Hi, how you doing today?
Okay.
All right. Now, first thing.
Okay.
Right. So Mrs. Pall Mall, 1965, is way different. Pall Mall's a cigarette for my young listeners out there. Is the energy and the tone is so mismatched between the agent and the prospect, right? That's the first thing I pointed out to him. I was like, hey, buddy, because he's always like that. He's always like upbeat, positive, rock'em sock'em guy. And I'm like, you are so mismatched from this person. Like, you're a strange salesperson calling this woman out of the blue in her tar paper shack with her sitting on her divan, right? With very low energy. You're so mismatched, man. Like, you gotta bring it down a little bit, be a little bit closer to where she is.
And guys, we've all been in that situation. If you're like, no, this guy, he's being. Think about that time when you were tired, you were worn out, you were having a bad day, and somebody came at you with a bunch of happy energy. The only thing you wanted to do was punch them in the face, right?
Yeah. Pippi Longstocking better not come bouncing into my living room when I'm not in a good mood. Exactly. Let's put it that way.
And granted, it sounds like this woman may have never been in a good mood, and we still need to try and match her a little bit.
This is not fair. We have no idea what mood she's in. We do know that the tone, the pacing, the energy, huge mismatch.
Hey, good. Reason for the call is, looks like you had connected with us through Zillow about 6-7 months ago. Was just curious if you ended up finding a house to purchase.
All right, so not bad. Yeah. Other than the happy, skippy doodah type of entry that didn't match her. Good delivery. Here's who I am. This is why I'm calling. This is what I want to know. The only way we could punch that up is give her back whatever likely objection that she is going to give us, right? Hey, are you still in the market to purchase, or did you buy something already, right? And the reason that we do that in most of our intros is because we want to demonstrate that we're not your typical salesperson. So whenever I'm training people, Brian, I'll ask them, hey, what's one thing you hate about salespeople? Do you know what almost the universal answer is?
What is the one thing I hate about salespeople? Um,
And what the universal answer is, almost.
I would say they're too pushy.
That's almost the universal answer, is they're too pushy. Do you know what pushy means?
Not exactly.
They don't take no for an answer.
Okay. Fair enough.
The point is that if most people hate the fact that salespeople are pushy, and pushy means they don't take no for an answer, when you call somebody out of the blue, just give them the no. Give them an opportunity to tell you no. Be like, I'm not your typical salesperson. Here's a no you can give me that you're probably going to give me, and I'm fully happy to accept it, right? Just to change the tone just a little bit, you know?
Yeah, there's so much positive stuff that comes with the no, by the way. You got it really is positive. And just an aside about a no, if you can tell a client no, it may be the most powerful thing that you can do. Can I get can I get this house with no down payment? No, I'm sorry, you can't. Oh, okay, cool. What do most salespeople do? I don't know. I'll figure it out. No, you're not going to figure it out because you can't do it.
Yeah.
So just tell them no, and then they'll believe everything they say that you say.
Yeah. I feel like, Brian, I feel like you'd be more like, there's a lot of ways you can get this house. No down payment isn't one of them. Let's explore the other options. Right? I feel like it would be one of those kind of strategies.
Fair enough.
It wouldn't be no. And we're moving on. I only say no when I'm at a listing appointment and I can tell that the seller wants to work with me, but they still ask to reduce the commission. Right? And I'll be like, nope. Any other questions? Just moving on.
You know, I teach a class on objection handling, and you know what the first objection handler I teach is? It's my favorite one.
What?
Ignore it and move on.
Ignore it. Yeah, I love that. Where are we at here? Yeah, I would have just added in, hey, throw in the likely objection, right? Yeah. Are you still in the market to purchase, or did you buy something already?
No, I'm not going to sell my house right at this time. So, and it was on contingent that I sold my home. So my cousin is a realtor with Carpenter.
Okay.
And my cousin's wife. And, you know, she's got her eye out for me, but she said it's kind of tough to buy a home on contingency to sell yours. But she does have her eye open for me on that. And so that's what's with that.
Yeah, no, I totally understand. Yeah, if for some reason something changes in the future, we would definitely love to help you out.
Okay.
Yeah, are you mostly going to end up probably looking in 2026?
I'm not sure yet. It just, you know, she's got her eye open, and if she comes up with something great or something, I might think about it. Otherwise, I'll probably just stay here.
No, I totally understand. Have you been in your home for a long time?
Nah, but my mom left it to me about 5 years. But my sister was in it before then.
Oh, okay, very nice. Yeah, well, yeah, that sounds like a decent situation then. If you, if your parents left it to you, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I hope you had a great holiday weekend, and like I said, if anything changes in the future, feel free to give us a buzz.
Okay, thank you.
Have a great day.
So, yeah, he just gave up. He's like, all right, you have an agent. You're only going to sell your house on contingency. You're not motivated. And he's like, all right, I give up.
That's what I heard too.
He just did not feel like doing it. He's like, I don't care.
Dale, I don't know about you. You're being more harsher on this guy than I would. She's got an agent.
Oh, okay.
The woman doesn't want to sell her house. Her cousin's an agent. Do I think he did a great call? No. Do I think that there's anything there? No.
I disagree.
Cool. That's why I just thought it would be fun to disagree. We don't do it very often. So
yeah. So I disagree, and he's a newer agent. So here's what I'd say. Let me qualify it.
Sure.
If you're already doing 36 you're doing 3 transactions a month. You got 4 or 5 listings you're carrying, right? You just need to knock it out for today, and you want to skip over this one because it's too much work. I get it, right? This guy, brand new in the business, has nothing pending, right?
Yeah.
Dude needs to run this thing down until either she boots him off the phone or he makes something out of this conversation, because what's one of the big complaints that I'm getting right now is that nobody answers the phone. Nobody responds. Nobody answers the phone. Well, if you're having trouble getting people to answer that phone, you better squeeze every drop of juice out of every conversation you have. And even if he wanted to quit on this woman, what's one more question he could ask her before he gets off that phone?
You could ask her for a home valuation. He could ask her if he's got, hey, by the way, I work with a lot of clients in your area. If I have someone who might be interested in your home, could I give you a call and then we could, I could bring them over? I mean, those are just the two in my head.
Yeah. Pocket listing, right? Which would be awesome. And they're short on inventory, so they need it.
Right.
Which would take care of her contingency issue. And then even the Hail Mary. Do you know of anybody else who's looking to sell or purchase? I don't care if she knows another agent. There's a bajillion of us. Everybody knows 5 agents.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, you ask them anyway. So he bailed on this. He should have stayed. He could have squeezed more info out of it. And even to just practice, man. Like if you're having trouble putting stuff together, chase her around a little bit. See if you can get in the door. See if you can get a listing appointment. See if you can go meet her face to face. See if you can get her out to look at some houses with you. But we don't even know why she's buying.
Yeah.
We don't know why she's moving. We don't know what she wants. We don't know anything about her except that she sounds like she smokes Marlboros all day.
You know what's interesting? I will say this, Dale. I'm going to give this agent credit for another thing. He brought her energy level up.
I think he did a little bit.
He did. At the end, she didn't sound like a Marlboro smoker anymore.
No.
She put energy in her voice. So it's hard. And she was like, yeah. I mean, literally, the amount of energy from the beginning of the call to the end of the call. So he managed to build some rapport with her. And but let's talk about that real quick. It would have gone faster and easier if he would have mirrored and matched her energy at the beginning and then ramped his up. That's how you do that. If you want someone to come with you, you've got to match them first, get them to follow you, and then they'll come with you.
Yeah. And I want to share a story here about my favorite for sale by owner call that I ever made. I've spoken to a lot of for sale by owners over my lifetime. Expireds, for sale by owners, for rent by owners, the whole thing, right? Outbound cold call prospecting. The best FSBO call I ever had, and this is the point to, making that Hail Mary ask. This FSBO, I chased them around. They wouldn't meet with me. They wouldn't come off it. They wouldn't talk to an agent. So finally I was like, all right, oh, hey, do you know anybody else who's thinking about selling their house? And he said, yeah, you know what? My friend Sheila is thinking about selling her house and she doesn't have an agent. Referred me to Sheila. I never saw this FSBO, never met the FSBO, never talked to the FSBO again, referred me to Sheila. Sheila then progresses to buy and sell several $1 million worth of business with my wife and I over the next couple of years. That was the best FSBO call I ever had.
And here's the great thing. Let's call the guy Bob because that's my default. Hey, Sheila, it's Dale. Bob said that I should give you a call. That you were potentially looking to sell. I mean, literally, you got the guy's name. Oh, yeah. And that's almost a guaranteed listing. Like you have to screw that up, right?
Right. It worked out great. And the point is, if I didn't ask.
And I think just one more time, Dale, how simple is the question and how uncomfortable is it not? Just say it again.
Right. Hey, do you know anybody else who's thinking about selling their home or purchasing?
Yes or no.
That's it.
I mean, there's no pain in that question. There's no one who's going to go, God damn it, I don't know how to answer that. Like, it's just they do or they don't. It adds approximately 4 seconds to the phone call. I mean, but 1 out of 100, you're going to get $3 million of real estate sales, right?
Yep, absolutely. So thanks for joining us today. Cash Call, Dale Archdeacon, Brian Curtis. Hey, if you like this content, click the links below so you can get additional training from me, from Smart Sales Coaching, so that you can start setting more appointments today.